All right, let's talk about the nightmare dystopia we are in, because we're in one. You know, we talk about these flags being flown, and we're like, well, you know, maybe it means this, and maybe they'll say this in the future. I give you this tweet from The Readout. Companies covering some or all travel costs for abortions. We've got Citi, Yelp, Bumble, Levi's, Lyft, Apple, Amazon, Starbucks, Zillow, Airbnb, PayPal, Disney, Bank of America, MasterCard, Tesla, Meta, Microsoft, Dick's, Patagonia, JP Morgan, Match, DoorDash, Netflix, and Reddit. Just some of the companies that are covering the cost of abortion for their female employees for one reason. Maternity leave costs more money.
Yep. That's right.
Welcome to the corporate nightmare dystopia you've long been warned about. Personally, I never thought paying for women to kill their children because it's cheaper than paying for maternity leave would become a left-wing position, but here we are. I want to add, we here at Timcast will not be paying the costs for any of our employees to travel to and seek out abortions. We do, however, offer unlimited maternity and paternity leave because we trust those who are going to have to raise their family to spend as much time as they need, and then they can come back when they see fit. All they got to do is let us know, and we will try and figure out how to fill in, because family comes first. And if every business worked that way, maternity leave, paternity leave, and family comes first, we'd have a very strong, robust, healthy society. But unfortunately, corporations today are saying, look, it's going to cost us $4,000 to $5,000 in maternity leave. And then you got paternity leave on top. Oh, that's a new thing. Just give her the $2,000 for the abortion and get rid of it.
Well, also, she's going to be working fewer hours, most likely. She could be, because she's going to be more focused on being a mother, taking care of her child. And oh my goodness, it might even be the case that she stops working altogether to be a stay-at-home mom, and then you have to find somebody else. So it's cynical, it's evil. They would literally rather slaughter infants than see any decline in their profits. And of course, the left has a blind spot here. The left has a very obvious blind spot here because they see abortion as utility, which allows them consequence-free sexual access to women's bodies without any potential responsibility being incurred as a result. And so they're completely willing to support this horrific dystopian garbage, because if they didn't, they would have to come to terms with how twisted and broken their worldview is. And they would also, heavens forbid, have to live in a society where they need to control their sexual urges instead of doing whatever they want, whenever they want. And that's ultimately what this is all about. It's all about short-term pleasure and short-term gain.
I got to be honest, like, it's not even about that, because IUDs exist and condoms exist. It's like, you don't have to control your urges. You just got to cover up.
Well, that's the thing. One argument that they make is, well, what if this fails? And so there was an interesting analysis from the Brookings Institute, which came out, where they were looking at the explosion in fatherlessness in the black community. And one argument they made is it was actually the legalization and increased legalization of abortion prior to Roe v. Wade, and then abortion being legalized nationally after Roe v. Wade, which led to the collapse of the black family, because it broke down the expectations that you should be with someone who you would have kids with.
Greg, what do you think about the corporations?
I think I've said this before, we're living in an era of woke capitalism in which companies pretend to care about social justice to sell products to people who pretend to hate capitalism. And I think that really, there's money in it. There's money in virtue signaling. There's money in faux glamour and faux communism, and we're against the. And I'm just sometimes, frankly, appalled at the hatred, the visceral hatred towards this amazing country that I came to 28, 29 years ago and afforded me great opportunities. And I wish we could talk more about what we love as much as what we hate. And I think the wokeification of America is just tragic in so many respects.
It's just so amazing. I wonder how many these companies, when they saw the Roe v. Wade decision, they probably went, yeah, baby, because now we can justify not paying maternity leave.
Yep. Ka-ching.
Yeah. How creepy is this? It's like every nightmare corporate. I'm speechless.
Yeah, it's disgusting. I mean, but this is also part of what happens when you have a society which restructures itself and reorients itself away from being about virtue and character development and towards short-term gratification. Ultimately, that's what abortion is. It is the ultimate example of saying, all that matters is convenience. I don't care who has to get hurt as long as I'm not forced to take upon any responsibility.
I got an idea for you, Seamus, for a cartoon. Mm-hmm. And it's a corporate PSA from one of these companies, and they're like, we here at Apple care deeply about our employees. That's why, as an employee here, if you ever encounter an unwanted pregnancy, we will cover your cost to seek an abortion. And the woman goes, what about maternity leave? No.
Well, and so this is funny, right? The left says we need abortion because we need to guarantee a woman's right to choose. But then whenever they look at anything else that happens in the corporate world between an employer and their employee, they say this is a totally coercive relationship. People don't really have the ability to choose new jobs. So this is, I mean, by their analysis, this is against women's choice because you literally have employers economically incentivizing women to kill their unborn children.
It's amazing. Another idea for a bit would be like a woman going into her supervisor and being like, I think I'm pregnant and I may need maternity leave. And he goes, have you considered aborting it? And she's like, no, I can't afford it. We got you covered.
You guys follow that Robert Reich? Is it Reich or Reich? Anyone know for sure?
Whichever one's the bad one.
Yeah. And he tweeted out, I guess, July 2021, let's get one thing straight. Freedom doesn't mean you have the right to recklessly endanger others by refusing to get vaccinated.
I saw that.
And then from like today or yesterday, he tweets out, I don't know who needs to hear this, but every person should have control over their own body. So
he doesn't know who needs to hear it because it's him.
A year ago, he was saying you don't have the right to refuse to get vaccinated. And then yesterday he said you should have control over your own body. I don't understand where the disconnect is.
Well, it's my body, my choice until it actually, it's like, there's a difference when it's COVID and when it's the.
There's
and
no
that's
logic. There's no
there isn't
principle.
any logic,
It's not hypocrisy. Whatever benefits them is good. Period.
Yeah, well, yeah. I actually, I was flying here and I saw people still wearing masks. I don't think people are afraid of COVID anymore. They're afraid of others knowing, I think, what COVID revealed about themselves. And, that whole situation, that 2 years plus of COVID to me was, I called it right at the start, the panicdemic, not the pandemic. There was this sense of, taking away our rights. And if we let them take away our rights during emergencies, they're going to continue to manufacture emergencies to take away our rights. And to me, I'm British. I didn't grow up here, but I see this lack of people actually getting it. Like the freedom of speech is another thing. I see in the UK they have hate speech laws. The police forces are trolling the internet and arresting, knocking on people's doors and pulling them in and charging them with crimes for things they've said. Yep. Freedom of expression. As long as there's no incitement to violence, say what you want. You don't have to agree, but it is dystopia. You called it. It's this dystopia that people many people don't seem to be getting.
And it's and these are all the companies that change their Twitter avatars to rainbow flags. Mm-hmm. Like they don't care about you.
Yep.
They're gutting the system. So there was in New York City and San Francisco, there were stampedes at their Pride events. I think in New York, someone lit off fireworks. I'm not sure. It might have been both places. And then people stampeded out screaming, thinking there was a shooting. I was looking at these photos and these videos of this stuff, and I'm just like, at some point, I don't know if they ever were about celebrating love. You look at the videos.
You don't think ever?
I don't know if ever. Not in my lifetime.
Right.
Not in my lifetime. Yeah, my family owned a cafe on the north side of Chicago, and I wasn't allowed to go outside during Pride because it's debauchery. It's nude people doing things to each other and just like things children shouldn't see. And so my mom would be like, hey, Pride is this weekend. Don't go outside. And we're going to, just keep him in the back. Don't let him see. And then I remember I had to go out one time and I saw it. I was a little kid. Nude women, nude men doing things inappropriate around children, people dancing around, skipping through the street naked. There's viral videos going around right now of a man wearing a Bugs Bunny mask, totally naked, dancing, jumping through the street.
I saw that, and I'm 54, and I don't want to see that.
There's a video of an old man with a big gut in tighty whities twerking in front of like children, and it's like that's not about love. It's just not about love and being proud of yourself.
These parents taking their kids out to see
the same people who saluted, whichever corrupt ideology, be it the red salute or otherwise. I have family members and friends that I couldn't believe it a few years ago seeing them march to the street, do the red salute. They're like, oh, it just means black power. And I'm like, and the Roman salute meant white power. You're doing an identitarian salute to a fascist or authoritarian regime. Like, I don't care what you think you're doing. You're in a death cult and you've lost your mind.
There was a march in I think the UK a couple of weekends ago, maybe last weekend, and the chant was Ho Chi Minh, Che Guevara, Stalin, Ho Chi Minh, and I'm thinking, what are you doing? what are you're walking through this, and I think they're just blindly chanting catchphrases and going back to communism, and with no understanding of history. But then it's no surprise, given the educational system, given the fact that we're burning books and we're knocking down statues and we're not learning any lessons from history, or we're not relearning the lessons from history that they taught us and history taught us.
It doesn't matter what we know from history. That's the sad reality. We watched them tear down the statues. We knew what would happen when they did. We learned the lessons from 1984. They were renaming streets. That's one of the lessons. And we watched them do it. In New York, they illegally painted Black Lives Matter in front of Trump Tower, seizing taxpayer dollars to do it. And corrupt police officers blindly and stupidly defended it and arrested those who challenged it. The governments in these cities have become overtly corrupt. The institutions are overtly corrupt. We are watching it happen. And we know exactly what it means in the turn of a century when people are tearing down statues and replacing them with their own ideology and not being held accountable. The next steps are obvious if we stay on a comparable track to the 1900s. And everyone knows it. I know it. Seamus knows it. You know it. People have talked about it ad nauseum. The tearing down of statues, the renaming of streets. 1984 is here. Merrick Garland rejecting the ruling from the Supreme Court. The DOJ arresting Republicans. The front runner in Michigan was arrested. We have a former Trump senior DOJ official, Jeffrey Clark, raided by the FBI. James O'Keefe, a news organization, admittedly, according to the FBI, raided by the feds. The federal government has been weaponized and is going after people who oppose their ideology. They've been tearing down statues and doing all of the corrupt things we expect. And that's it. We know it's happening. So what next?
What is next? I mean, so people listening to this are watching it go, well, what do I do? What can I do?
There's a possibility right now that in November the Republicans win. And that's the big question. Here's what I fear. If the Republicans win and then do nothing, this country is already collapsed. If the Republicans win and then we see investigations, we see subpoenas, that could be pulling us out of the tailspin and correcting the corruption of the Biden administration, of Joe Biden himself, the things his son has done, if those are investigated. If the Summer of Love riots are investigated, if the 529 insurrection is investigated, perhaps that could lead to an uprising and pulling this country back together.
Do you think there's an argument for the convert, the inverse of that?
Yes.
Of just like let's just move forward and not go back and forth between impeach them, impeach him. No.
If the Republicans do nothing, then the country implodes. Because if I've been doing a lot of reading about the Civil War, and one of the principal issues was that the South felt the federal government was not enforcing laws that harmed it. The North was getting to do whatever they wanted. And that's comparable to what we're seeing now with Antifa killing, Antifa and BLM rioting in the Summer of Love and 30 plus people being murdered, dying, David Dorn being shot in the chest. Kamala Harris fundraised for these people. Joe Biden's staff donated to bail these people out. But outside of that, you have Trump officials being raided by the feds. You have Republicans, like in Nevada, the chairman having their phone records seized. The federal government has been weaponized against their rival political party. If nothing happens, you are going to see this country get ripped apart. What I think is likely to happen is, like Texas, it's already happening, actually. Missouri says they're a sanctuary to federal gun laws. New Hampshire just declared the same thing. California declared on immigration. They're ripping themselves apart from the federal government, saying you have no authority here on these issues anymore. Well, it's not overt nullification. They're saying we don't recognize those laws and we will not be party to assistance in enforcement of them. That's step one. What happens now? You've got all these states saying we ban official travel between these states for these things they support. The country is hyperpolarizing geographically. That's a precursor to outright statewide conflict, interstate conflict. I think if Republicans get in and actually do something, it will be tumultuous, but maybe start correcting the problems in this country and restoring accountability. If the Republicans do nothing, confidence is lost. And without confidence, people ignore the system outright. You see this I saw this in Sweden. A lot of people were saying the crime was being committed by refugees. It's not true. The crime was being committed by the children of refugees, people who were born in Sweden, but were considered by Swedes to be immigrants. So what happens is you have these areas like Rinkeby in Sweden. A bunch of Somali refugees move in the 90s. Sweden says, we don't care. They form an enclave. They don't interact with the outside government. Today, their children, who have never been a part of the system, will throw bricks at cops because they don't see the cops as having any real authority. And the cops know it. That leads to total destabilization. If you get to the point in the United States where people view the government as illegitimate, like AOC said the Supreme Court's illegitimate, several other federal level politicians have said this. Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, rejected the Supreme Court ruling and said, we're going to resist this and we're going to ensure these things stay. The country at the highest level officially is being ripped apart. If that continues, you will have people in Texas saying, we don't recognize the federal government at all, and they'll completely ignore it. Already starting to happen. Texas legally allows for suppressors manufactured in Texas to be used in Texas without going through the NFA stamping process, which is a federal law. It's already begun. It can change if confidence is restored. There's a possibility that if Republicans get in and start doing things, the left reacts so violently that it's inevitable. I don't know for sure. I can only tell you, if you read history, read the history of the Spanish Civil War, read the history of the Bolsheviks and Russia, you look at what's happening now, and I don't see how you can imagine this results in a peaceful process. I just don't see it. Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.